Today news, there are a lot of interesting updates from the Kursk direction. Here, after spending too much time fighting alongside North Korean troops, the Russians have started borrowing their tactics in a desperate attempt to break the siege on their stranded allies in the hamlet of Nikolski. But as they charged forward in human waves, draped in Soviet flags and heading straight into Ukrainian fire, the rescue mission quickly turned into yet another battlefield catastrophe. The goal of the Russian forces in this area is to reach the village of Nikolski and relieve the North Korean soldiers stuck on the outer edges of the settlement, left over from the previous assaults. This is because Ukrainians maintain strict fire control over all supply lines to Nikolski, leaving the North Koreans completely cut off from resupply for over a week now. To prevent Ukrainians from capturing a large part of the North Korean contingent, Russians attempted to link up with their allies by launching a massive mechanized assault over the fields. Russians hoped that mechanized assault units would be able to provide enough of a firepower advantage through their tanks and BMP infantry fighting vehicles to expand their area of control and relieve the North Koreans. The main advantage of the Russian forces in this area is the extremely cold weather, which has caused the ground to freeze solid, enabling Russian armor to move freely across the fields instead of being restricted to the heavily mined roads. Furthermore, if we look at the topographic map, we can see that the Russian approaches are largely shielded from Ukrainian firing positions by a hill ridge, which protects them from targeting by Ukrainian ATGM positions for a large portion of their journey. However, once they cross the ridge, the Russian forces are directly exposed to Ukrainian fire from the eastern hill ridge, which allows Ukrainian forces to fire on top of the armored assault groups. Additionally, the lack of tree lines in this last part of the journey gives the Russians no cover for the most dangerous portion of their assault. Unfortunately for the Russians, Ukrainians decided to make this already deadly kill zone even worse. They used remote mining techniques with drones and artillery to scatter a large number of landmines across these fields, effectively extending the minefield from around the roads to cover the entire field. Additionally, the clear weather allowed Ukrainians to increase their drone surveillance in the area, enabling them to detect Russian assaults even before they reached the hill. Geolocated combat footage reveals how Russian forces launched mechanized assaults using several BTR armored personnel carriers and tanks. However, the column quickly came under attack by Ukrainian precision strikes, including kamikaze drones, landmines, and artillery fire. Notably, Russian soldiers adorned their tanks and vehicles with Soviet flags, attempting to recreate the mass charges of the past. However, as many of the Russian armored personnel carriers and tanks were rapidly disabled, Russian soldiers resorted to advancing across open fields on foot. These human wave formations, similar to previous North Korean assaults, ended in complete disaster for the Russian infantry. The Russian vehicles that survived the initial ambush pressed forward, but were also quickly disabled and destroyed by Ukrainian precision fire, leaving dozens of wrecked vehicles scattered across the fields near Nikolski. The besieged North Koreans could do nothing but watch the disaster unfold. Overall, the Russians conducted a disastrous assault on Nikolski in the hope of relieving the cutoff of North Korean forces. However, their plan backfired because Ukrainians meticulously prepared a kill zone to efficiently deal with the Russian assault. These losses only further drain the already limited Russian reserves, while Ukrainians maintain powerful defensive positions that stand despite the intense pressure. As the attempt to resupply the North Koreans in Nikolski failed, the survivors of the latest Russian assault will only add to the supply issues, with more mouths to feed and wounded to take care of. North Korea provides 50% of Russia's ammunition needs in its war against Ukraine. Ukraine's HUR military intelligence chief Kirylo Budanov said at the Ukraine Year 2025 forum on 23 February, Budanov addressed ongoing concerns regarding Russia's production rates and volumes, stating that for major weapons systems, output remains at last year's levels or has slightly decreased. However, when it comes to ammunition, particularly glide bombs and drones, Russia is significantly increasing production and making substantial progress in expanding its output. The intelligence chief also reiterated that North Korea has begun large-scale deliveries of 170mm Koksan self-propelled howitzers and 240mm multiple rocket launcher systems to Russia. Budanov stated that Russia has reduced its recruitment target for new military personnel by nearly 100,000 this year. While this cut is official, he noted that its actual execution remains uncertain, as Russia continues to pursue its strategic goals. However, he emphasized that Moscow is facing major difficulties, increasingly resorting to terrorist tactics, particularly missile and drone strikes. The intelligence chief did not specify Russia's goals, but multiple analysts have repeatedly noted, citing statements from Russian officials, that they include bringing Ukraine back into Russia's sphere of influence, subjugating it as a state, and dismantling its independence.